Hey guys, it's Gia here with the first episode of Mull It Over, a new Hearthstone review show where we highlight key early game decisions from the Grandmasters, starting from the mulligan. This week I want to spotlight a certain deck and a certain card where the mulligan decisions really stood out to me. The deck I want to talk about is Zoo Warlock, which didn't see very much representation among GMs this week, as Galakrond Warlock was generally seen to be at an overall higher power level. But Zoo was still brought by two Grandmasters, Tom60229 from APAC and Felkane from EU, both making it to their respective top 8s. Now, Zoo is an archetype that has existed pretty much since the beginning of Hearthstone, and the mulligan was always about keeping your most powerful, cheap minions for an efficient curve. Flame Imp, Voidwalker, and so on. Nowadays, Zoo doesn't even necessarily include those cards in the list, and instead is looking for what seems to be exactly two cards in the mulligan: Imprisoned Scrap Imp and Hand of Gul'dan, which cards like Expired Merchant and Nightshade Matron are opened up as possibilities for when you already have the latter in hand. You can see both Tom and Felkane often going for full mulligans despite being presented with cheap minions to play early, as they know that the new playstyle for Zoo is to go for the best possible Scrap Imp turn, buffing a hand full of those cheap minions, which you put together using the powerful draw engine from Hand of Gul'dan, and then playing them all on the same turn. It might be tempting to keep powerful cards like Magic Carpet and Canarthad Ebonlock, and of course well-statted 1-drops like Blazing Battle Mage. But in different games, Tom decided that even they get tossed without the appropriate support. He does finally keep something in this game versus Rivius though, which is of course Hand of Gul'dan. Of course, I'm sure there are situations when other cards are kept, but it still goes to show just how important the Imp and the Hand are to this new style of Zoo. Now, the specific card I wanted to highlight in the mulligans this week is Glowfly Swarm, a 5-mana spell from Druid that acts as one of the linchpins of the spell Druid archetype and is generally considered to increase the deck's win rate when kept, as it can create such a powerful full board early on in the game. However, while Fungal Fortunes, Overgrowth, and Kael'thas seem to be kept universally in the opener, it seems that Glowfly Swarm is a little bit more up for debate. Let's take a look at different situations from GM Week 1 when players were presented with a card in the mulligan. So Glowfly Swarm is a lot more attractive as a keep when you're on the coin compared to on the play. Going second, you have an extra card in hand, which is most likely an additional spell for Glowfly Fuel. And also, you're able to play Glowfly as early as turn 4 with the coin without any additional ramp, which is very strong against decks without 2 damage AoE. One example of that is in the mirror, especially when your opponent is not running Starfall in their list. So you can see right here in Chonsu versus Surrender, Chonsu keeps it in the mirror, especially with Innervate, because it's so insane that he can play it as early as turn 3, and you can even see his little cheer in the video, much to Surrender's chagrin. You're also likely to keep Glowfly Swarm in faster and more aggressive matchups. You can see Frozen keeps it against Bloody Face's Face Hunter even off the coin, knowing that he would eventually fall behind if he only played reactively in the matchup. His game plan was to stay at a decent health total by the time he could swarm, and then he could swing board, as it would be very difficult for the Hunter to remove. With Tice's Druid versus Hunter Ace's No Hands Warrior, Tice opts to keep one copy, but throws his Innervate, which seems to indicate that he values the board development from Glowfly in the matchup, but he doesn't want to play it immediately as it could be punished by the Risky Skipper package. Against Galakrond Warlock, it seems to be more of a point of contention. Both Zim and Surrender chose to throw back the Swarm even being on coin versus Warlock. In Surrender's case, he even had the Overgrowth in the opener. Now you can make arguments for throwing it, as Warlock is one of the classes that runs effective AoE for Glowfly boards. They have Crazed Netherwing and Moarg Artificer with either Dark Skies or Rain of Fire, perfectly poised to get rid of a bunch of 2/2s. Zim and Surrender probably chose to prioritize looking for ramp and card draw, and Kael'thas so that they could go for more AoE resistant board state later on in the game, with cards like Soul of the Forest being especially strong against Warlock. On the other hand though, Frozen chose to keep Swarm in his game against Galakrond Warlock, which you can also justify, because at some point as Druid you still need to use it to pressure the Warlock, and if you can pressure with consecutive boards, maybe they run out of AoE. We can also see contrasting opinions regarding Glowfly in the Druid versus Highlander Rogue matchup, where Zim chose to toss it in his game, but Rivius chose to keep it. Granted, Zim was off coin without Fungal Fortunes or Ramp to support the Glowfly, whereas Rivius did have the coin. But it's worth noting that Rogue would be one of the classes with fewer options to deal with an early Glowfly Swarm, relying on Flick Skyshift or maybe a Waste Warden if it's in the list to clean up the 2/2s nicely. Overall, I think it's very cool that mulligan decisions aren't set in stone. Right now, maybe we're still early enough in the meta that people still can't agree on what's best, or maybe they never will agree. And you know what, I think it's pretty cool that way. So, Glowfly Swarm, when to keep it and when to throw it. I guess I'll have to mull it over. Aside from the mulligans, we also talk about early game plays on this show, and in my opinion, nothing from this week is more noteworthy than Mana Burn on 1! In Game 3 of the Americas Finals, Empanizado chooses to do just that versus Bloodyface's Face Hunter. Now, I get the thinking behind it because Empanizado had his turn 2 and 3 spoken for in hand and didn't have any 1-drops to develop. So in a fast matchup, theoretically, the next best thing he could do would be to limit turn 1 options from Bloodyface. But I'm not actually sure if this was a good play or not, and by the looks of the VOD, neither is Empanizado. But it paid off, I guess, as Bloodyface did not in fact develop anything, allowing Empanizado to at least play Sightless Watcher on an empty board. But just so everyone knows, Bloodyface could have coined a 1-drop in that spot because I did the testing on behalf of TJ and Frodan. You cannot, in fact, have negative mana crystals. That's it for today, guys, and I'll see you for next week's Mull It Over.